Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about a hotly debated topic in the kaiju genre, realism. Today we're talking about the Monsterverse and realism. Let's get right into it. So Godzilla 2014 is the first film of the Monsterverse. I'm just going to say it right off the bat. This is one of the best kaiju films to have realism and kaiju action. Now hold up for a sec. What do I mean by realism? I mean that if there were a giant monster in a film, the only unrealistic aspect of that film would be the monster. The film is only asking for the audience to suspend their disbelief of the idea that these giant monsters could actually exist. That is all. There's real-world physics, the monsters move slowly, and everything is just grounded in realism. The only unrealistic aspect of Godzilla 2014 is, well, Godzilla and the Mutos. There's three things that make this film so amazing and a prime example of an amazing realistic film. It has amazing visual effects, realistic and believable physics, and it's shot in a way that brings out a sense of scale and build-up. These three key elements combined make an astonishing film. Sure, the characters were quite weak, but that does not mean the film was entirely bad. It was just really boring. But that could be taken as bad in some cases. But let's talk about why these three key elements make the film so realistic. The visual effects. The visual effects are done in a realistic way. Godzilla King of the Monsters, for instance, has a bunch of blue and yellow lightning, clouds and hurricanes in places where there shouldn't really be, and even spotty visual effects. There's an excessive use of the kaiju. We see them so much throughout the film. And then what happens is you end up noticing the CG isn't that good. Like here, and here. Godzilla 2014 CGI just looked incredible. The water effects looked very nice, the explosions and the set pieces were superb, and the monsters looked amazing. A lot of this stems from the scale, which we'll touch on later. But in terms of actual visual effects, take the Hawaii scene for instance. When Godzilla is even spotted, the water in the shot moves as if there was literally something over 300 feet in that water swimming fast. It moves as if Godzilla would really be there, with weight to it. Even when Godzilla dives under the aircraft carrier and rises up out of the water, it moves as it would if something of that size were really breaking the surface of the water. The ships all move, and I mean, this shot right here, it just looks awesome. Look at this building collapsing. Hell, look at this building collapse when the female Muto is spotted by the male. There is so much smoke that is just so thick, it seriously makes it feel like the kaiju are there. It feels believable. And notice how much smoke there is when the female Muto builds her nest. Or how even when the male in the background destroys that other building. When the male Muto lands on the building, there is instant destruction. But the density of the smoke is so thick and moves so slowly, it feels as if there were actual people getting hurt by the falling debris, and that a male Muto even landed on a freaking building. Notice when the female Muto reaches her massive arms out, the building windows all shatter and the thick smoke rise out of it as the pieces fall over her arm, which gets driven further into the building. And then she falls on building after building, and you just see all of this thick smoke and fire. This is some amazing CGI. I haven't even begun to talk about the effects of the rain, the kaiju skin, how the monsters are animated. Oh my lord, it all just looks beautiful. Especially the Golden Gate Bridge scene. Noticing all the details in Godzilla Rising, it just looks gorgeous. Hell, even when Kong lands on the ground, there is so much thick smoke that it shows just how big this creature is. This shot of Ramarak arriving looks amazing. The trees all move out of the way in like a realistic manner. There's a good amount of smoke. The lighting looks perfect. It looks believable. You take all of this awesome CGI and then you compare it to King of the Monsters CGI, where you see King Ghidorah destroy a building. It just disappears and there's like little to no smoke. There isn't as much impact. There certainly is not enough smoke either. I mean, this smoke decimates quickly. It's like the shot in Pacific Rim Uprising where this smoke disappears in seconds. Even though in real life, the bigger it is, the denser the smoke, and thus the longer it would take to disappear. It just doesn't feel like it would actually happen, you know? You aren't as drawn in, and the stakes just aren't as high because of this. There is no sense of danger or fear. Let's talk about the color palette. I know Godzilla 2014 had a very dull color palette, but that did help in making the shots look quite real and not overly vibrant. Godzilla King of the Monsters had an obnoxiously vibrant color palette. Like, it just got to the point where it didn't even look realistic. It looked cartoonish. There is so much blue in the final battle, it just got annoying. Like, the film is either incredibly blue or incredibly orange. And it gets to the point where the shots just look like they wouldn't actually happen in real life. But in 2014, everything looked like it would actually happen. And that is because it isn't overly saturated. It's as if there is no color grading. Jurassic Park looked amazing for a lot of reasons, but looking back at the Brachiosaurus scene, one notable reason it looked amazing is because there is no color grading. It looked like it could have easily been shot on a camera and just shown to the world. King of the Monsters looked horrific because there was just so much damn blue to me. But then Godzilla 2014 was insanely dull. I believe that with a brightened image and more color, Godzilla 2014 would have looked perfect. But again, like I said, Godzilla 2014 was insanely dull, King of the Monsters was insanely blue. You have to find a middle ground. And in that middle ground, you find Kong Skull Island. Now this film had amazing visuals. One notable thing was that it was lit in a realistic manner while looking awesome. Especially those daytime scenes, you know, for some reason, this is quite funny, for some reason the weakness of the CG in the film is that the nighttime scenes looked bad. And Godzilla 2014 nailed nighttime scenes, but Kong Skull Island went like, you know, just overboard with it for some reason. And I guess they were trying to take into account the complaints from the 2014 film, and they just screwed up and took it a little bit to heart, which is okay. But one of the weaknesses of that film was the CGI during the nighttime scenes. This shot, just look at it. It does not look realistic. A lot of it does come from the color grading of the scene. There's this weird like blue tint that looks pretty bad, and Kong for some reason has some shiny blue to him. It's really weird. Like, I mean, this isn't even like scripted, but I'm just remembering that for some reason Kong's skin was a little bit too shiny, and I know his fur was very shiny, and the moonlight hitting his fur, from what I remember, it was pretty goddamn bright. Like, it looked a little bit too bright for my liking. In terms of the realistic lighting, King of the Monsters did not have this, like, at all. So, in short, the visual effects help ground the film in realism. If they look good, and it looks like it could actually happen, if the cinematography is on point, it definitely helps in making the film feel believable. It helps pull the audience in and emotionally invest in the story. Godzilla 2014 had some spectacular CGI, as did Kong Skull Island. King of the Monsters CGI was not great at all, and the color grading did not help in my opinion. With that said, let's address the next point. The physics. The physics in Godzilla 2014 are another big deal that make the film feel grounded in realism. Let's look at Godzilla 2014. Notice how slow he moves. He doesn't move too slowly, but he is still slow enough to the point where he feels massive. Look at how when Godzilla rises out of the water in the Hawaii scene, he creates a tsunami. I mean, the water in these shots just look phenomenal. Now you could say this is part of the visual effects section, but I'm including it here because it does have to do with physics. I mean, like, Godzilla and the Mutos throughout the film move slowly, but they're so big, so the audience naturally buys the fact that they move slowly. It doesn't cheapen the final battle at all, but you can see that when the male Muto flies, or Godzilla falls on the ground, or just when a building collapses in a certain way, that it all feels like it could have actually happened because of how logical and realistic it is acting. In Kong Skull Island, the environment moves in a way it would if a 100-foot tall creature were there. The water effects are massive and slow. The fog moves as if Kong were actually there and that big. Even the fire reacts like how it should to a giant Kong. But then you get to King of the Monsters and we have this shot of Godzilla approaching the final battle. And there's these clouds behind him rolling in on themselves. There's these blue and red lights in the sky. Lightning is yellow on Ghidorah's side but blue on Godzilla's side. King Ghidorah is getting power-ups. Godzilla gets power-ups. King Ghidorah drops Godzilla from the stratosphere. I don't even have a problem with this. I have a problem with how King Ghidorah is flapping his wings. It doesn't even look like he's flying, much less the unrealistic amounts of lightning and clouds in the background. There's like no consistency either, because Godzilla in 2014 barely survived a skyscraper falling on top of him. And now he survives this drop that high from the fucking stratosphere? No way. Anyway, that's not the topic of the video, or even the point I'm describing. There's this like magical dust from Mothra that somehow finds its way onto Godzilla even though she got vaporized like a mile away. Like, why didn't it land on Ghidorah? I already talked about the unrealistic way this building collapses and how there's little to no smoke that isn't thick at all. Then Burning Godzilla comes in and at that point it's just so stupid. Like, there's literally no impact to any of this stuff because it feels like you're watching a cartoon. 2014 had amazing physics, seeing as how slow the monsters moved and how the environment realistically reacted to these massive creatures. And now you have monsters bowing, or Godzilla getting his energy siphoned out of him and shit. Like, there is a definite difference in approach to physics of these kaiju, and Godzilla 2014 definitely has the best one. The build-up and sense of scale. Godzilla 2014 has the best sense of scale. The reason is because of the way it is shot. It is always shot from angles a human could achieve. Very rarely do you get that helicopter shot, which the average person isn't in every day, but they are there. There are shots where the angle is taken from a room in a skyscraper, from the ground, on a ship, and this is the main tool connecting the audience with the world it is creating. The build-up in this movie is also amazing. Now, I'm not going to say that this movie is amazing for cutting away, but I will say that if the film had a complete round 1 fight where Godzilla fought the male Muto in Hawaii, the film would definitely be better, as it would be had the film focused more on Godzilla and gave him some more soul. But again, that is a topic for another video. This film does have the best sense of scale and build-up in all of the Monsterverse. Kong Skull Island is where it starts to become way more fake. You know, instead of like scenes being shot from human perspectives purely, we start to get more of the CGI floaty camera. Now, I do like helicopter shots when they're used sparingly, or if the scene actually involves helicopters, like when they enter the storm. But this has too many of the floating CGI camera shots that it starts to become more of a scene and less of something that's actually happening or something that's occurring. I have watched the Kong versus helicopter sequence countless times. I just love it. But there are shots that could have been taken from the ground or from the point of a helicopter or on top of a mountain or from a distance. But having floaty CGI camera shots do tend to take the viewer out of believing this could actually happen, or even taking out the sense of scale, which is always a big no. Usually there are more medium shots of the kaiju, but the problem is the floating camera. It even ends up making the kaiju look smaller than they actually do. Like the shot of Kong roaring, or Kong growling at Ramarak. They just look smaller than they really are in the scene. Not only that, when you have a panning in shot like this one, and you see how quickly the camera is revolving around Kong, the camera is moving at a speed that it would take if Kong were like 5 feet tall. But if he were 100 feet tall, it would take way longer, ignoring the CGI camera. But King of the Monsters takes the CGI floaty camera to a whole new level. There are so many shots that are just floaty CGI cameras. It just becomes a long animation. The audience isn't as drawn in, they're just watching a battle. They're just watching a cartoon. Not being drawn into the battle and being caught up with it like we were in the 2014 film, means trouble. We get less shots taken from the human perspective, and again, I just don't jive with it at all. Nothing beats the human perspective shots from Godzilla 2014. In terms of build-up, Kong Skull Island doesn't really have any build-up. It's just out of nowhere. Kong just appears. But this totally works in the film. After the battle, you want to see more of him. They give him a scene and some shots of him, but it isn't anything like the climax of the film. So it was okay. King of the Monsters had some better build-up. I mean, we do see Godzilla a minute in and then a while later, but everyone really wants to see Godzilla. By around the 40-minute mark, we get to see Godzilla in all his glory. And this battle is awesome. It cuts away a lot, but the fight is visible and it just looks awesome. We want to see more of Godzilla, and he does show up out of nowhere later, but he ends up getting nearly killed by the oxygen destroyer, which was rushed in. But then he's out for most of the film. He gets revived and is brought back into the final battle, and the build-up pays off. But it doesn't compare to the build-up of 2014, nor does the sense of scale in either movies compare to 2014. So the sense of scale and build-up is definitely one of 2014's biggest strong suits. Now again, I'm not gonna act like 2014 is an excellent movie, but the visual effects, the realistic physics, and the sense of scale and build-up are definitely its biggest pros. It is what the other installments of the Monsterverse are lacking. When you get to King of the Monsters, they throw away all consistency. Fans aren't able to have fun and speculate on the monsters' weights and heights. When there are these cheap power-ups randomly being written just to fit a point of a plot for pure spectacle, the movie just becomes cheesy. And I've talked about it before, but I prefer a protagonist that works for their goal through blood, sweat, tears, and sheer determination. I want a character with good development. Godzilla could have been given that, having him needing to get used to other kaiju and befriending them in order to take on the big bad, where together, with teamwork, they would barely win. But instead we get a cheap power-up and we waste burning Godzilla. They just throw it away. They throw away all this consistency, which is what I was looking forward to from the Monsterverse. Now I hear people keep saying that giant monster films shouldn't be serious, and I'm not saying they need to be, but they should have some heart and definitely keep it realistic. If they want to go crazy with it, they should flesh it out over the course of like 3 or 4 more movies. Just ease into it. That's my main point. Godzilla 2014 asked to suspend the disbelief that these giant monsters can exist, and with the help of the 3 components the film uses, we accept it quite easily. Kong Skull Island asks to suspend the disbelief of these giant titans on this island, and to accept that Kong, an incredibly smart and fast titan, exists in the universe. No problem, we accept it. But then you get to King of the Monsters. It ends up asking to accept that the world can look this fake, that burning Godzilla can happen through Mothra, that the physics of the monsters are just thrown out the window, all this total bullshit. What made 2014 so special was how grounded it was. It took the effort, it took the time, and it fleshed it out. But going crazy by Godzilla's second film is a bad move, and it's only getting crazier with Godzilla vs. Kong. But this is a no spoiler video, so we're not going to talk about it. I think I went on long enough, but before I end the video, I just want to say that the Heisei Gamera trilogy perfectly managed to capture what a good monster movie should be. The visuals were astounding. It's shot from human angles. There is some excellent build-up, amazing characters, and realistic physics in which the monsters move slow, and the destruction, it's all just on point. So it can be done, and it should have been done, in my opinion. I'm sorry for the cynicism, and I'm sorry for being negative, but these are just my thoughts on the Monsterverse and realism, and I really would have preferred if they kept the whole universe grounded in realism. Go ahead and let me know what you guys think down below. Like, comment, and subscribe for more. This is King Kong 9100 signing out. See you in the next one.